Is that better?
That's 100 times better. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like,
Yeah. That's way better. It was funny because I guess because the other part won't be on the podcast, but I can explain what happened. I was sitting here waiting to connect with you on a Zoom meeting, and another name popped up. I was like, that doesn't seem right. Anyhow, we got it sorted now. But Maycee Barber finally got you on the podcast. I'm excited.
I am too. This is an honor, actually, to be able to be a part of this. So
well, I appreciate that. So before we dive into anything, people come to podcasts to listen to good conversation, good stories, right? Well, I have one really good Maycee Barber story that I think is worth telling. You probably know which one it is.
Maybe.
Girl Scout cookies, right?
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
I just told my roommate that story yesterday.
So here's for y'all that are listening, this is one of my favorite stories. So where myself and the Primos team elk hunts a lot. There's a place in New Mexico, and there's an operating cattle farm. And one of the cattle families out there's a cowboy, and over the years of hunting there, we got to know him and his family really, really well. And they're just this super, super sweet family, really good people. He has 2 sons and a daughter, just good people. Well, the cowboy, tragic accident, ended up getting killed in a farming accident, and just a really, really sad deal. And that family meant a lot to us, right? So when we were out there that next September elk hunting, we just kind of spent some time with the kids and with the daughter, whose name is Scarlett. And I think this was when the Girl Scout cookie thing happened. That was during the fall, I want to say, like November maybe.
So I want to say it was was it November? Because I was laying in bed getting ready for a weight cut. And it was like my fight before was January. So the one before that was in November.
Yeah. So October. That sounds right.
Yeah, right.
That sounds right. So anyhow, Scarlett's I think Scarlett's 5 years old, just like cute as a button, just like imagine the cutest little girl you can ever imagine, and then think cuter, because that's what Scarlett is. And Scarlett was like, first year in Girl Scouts, first year selling cookies. And I just was like, I don't know, just my heart went out to him because of everything that had been going on. And she had this like super high goal of selling all these cookies. And I was like, I don't know what in the world I could do to help, but I can do something. So I put something out on my Instagram about, hey, here's this link, buy some cookies. Well, then in swoops Maycee, who doesn't even know me that well at the time. Macy's like, hey, I see this story. I was a Girl Scout. I'm going to put this on my social media page and try to help this little girl out. And then, like, I don't know if you know this, Maycee, but like you sold that girl a lot of cookies. You helped her sell a lot of Girl Scout cookies. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
I know I got a pretty big following, but I'm like, I don't know how many people like actually, because like you never know how many people are actually going to follow through with.
Yeah. I mean, well,
that's cool.
My thinking was
everybody in the world is helping out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my point was you went out of your way to do something nice that you didn't have to, and that was much, much appreciated. Oh, and Maycee was like, you reached out to me. You're like, hey, if I send you a video, can you get it to Scarlett? So you sent me a video talking to Scarlett because you yourself ordered some cookies. And so I sent that to Scarlett's mom, and they watched it. And I mean, as you could imagine, a 5-year-old little girl getting a video from someone like you that's, a world-known athlete, ranked athlete in the UFC. I mean, I remember she told me that Scarlett was just on cloud 9. She thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I know I told you then, but I'm going to tell you then now.
It makes my heart smile.
Well, I just want to tell you, like, I cannot tell you how much I know I appreciated that, and I know that family appreciated that. So, yeah. Again, I know I wanted to tell this story in this podcast. So why not get it, break the podcast in with a really good story? Because that's good stuff.
It's gonna be hard to top that now because like I already feel great.
We should have saved that for the end, right?
Should have.
Yeah. Oh well, it'll be all right. So where are you at right now?
I'm at home in Milwaukee.
Okay. Is that where you born and raised there, or no?
No. I was born and raised in Colorado. I moved to Wisconsin, I believe November of last year. Not last year, the year before. So
Gotcha.
2019, I think. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Wisconsin's cool, but I'm here for like training and stuff. But Colorado's beautiful. I really miss it.
Yeah. So that was the whole reason for the move in, was just for the training and the fighting career?
Yeah. Yep, for training, yeah.
I feel you there, because I've traveled to Wisconsin for hunting, and I've traveled to Colorado a lot for hunting. And Colorado is is definitely one of my favorite states.
Yeah, we're going back. We have elk season for archery, and so that starts, I believe, the month of is it August or September?
Yeah, like the rut happens in September. I think it the bow season starts like September 1, I believe.
Yeah, so I think we're
Something
gonna be in Colorado like the entire month.
Yeah, good for y'all.
I'm super excited to be back there.
Yeah, is that something you've gotten to do every year, or have you had to not been able to in a while?
Elk season? No.
Yeah.
I drew this year. I didn't draw last year.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I put in and I got a tag for this year.
Okay.
So I'm super excited because I'm injured. So it's like perfect timing too, because I can't actually fight.
Right.
So now I feel good about going out hunting, because before I was like, I can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like before I had a fight, I'm like, why would I want to go out in the woods when I can be training and getting, progressing towards my goals, which obviously being outside is like a love of mine, but I have a bigger goal. So it was hard for me to like justify it.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm injured. Part of my recovery is like walking and running. So going and hiking a ton is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you strike me as a pretty goal-minded person. Let's backtrack a little bit. I have a bad habit of getting ahead of myself in conversations, because I heard elk hunting and I immediately just spun out of the way. So like before, I realized I haven't, for the people that are listening to this podcast, let's again, I should have done this like right off the bat, but kind of explain who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I am a professional fighter, obviously. I fight in the UFC. Mm-hmm. And I get punched in the face for a living. No, I mean that's pretty much like how to sum it up. But
just of it,
yeah, I've been training since I was 3 years old in martial arts. Decided I wanted to fight competitively and train around the time I was 15. And my family decided to kind of back me on that journey. And I made my amateur debut and fought and won. And then I fell in love with it, fought professionally, and just continued on through. I went through LFA, then the Contender Series, and then into the UFC. And now I'm kind of like at the top of the top. And now it's like progressing towards that goal of title. So it's kind of like a backstory of my life. Pretty much just like in the gym all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be, right? Like you were saying. I mean, if you're to get to the level that you're at, you kind of don't really have a choice. The first time I saw you was on the Contender Series. Like,
oh really?
Yeah. Like I won't. It's not a secret. I've said it on this podcast before, because I've had other. You're the first. Yeah, you're the first women's MMA I've ever had on this podcast, but I've had some other guys like Corey. I know y'all have Corey Anderson.
Yeah.
Yep. Corey's been on this show. Had some other guys. Anyhow, but when it comes to like UFC, MMA, I'm a pretty diehard fan. So yeah, I was like Tuesday Night Contender Series. I was watching that thing every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday night. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember that the first time, and I remember and then
that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then the way this whole thing started with us getting in contact with each other, it was like right after you fought Robertson.
Oh, Jillian Robertson. Yeah. That was October 18th.
Yeah, and then it was either your dad or Wyatt reached out to me. I can't remember, but anyhow,
probably both of them.
I mean, I've talked to both of them at some point, but I can't remember who reached out first. But I think they were surprised because they reached out something about like hunting or whatever, and then I was like, yeah, I know who Maycee is. I just watched her beat Jillian Robertson. They were like, oh. I was like, yeah, I'm a fan. But so my dog's growling at the thunder. I don't know if you can hear that.
My two were I gave them bones, so they were quiet. there's one on the chair and the other one's laying by the fireplace.
It's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So take me to like, you're from talking, because I've talked to your dad a good bit. I've talked to Wyatt a good bit. Y'all seem to be a pretty well-rooted hunting family.
Yeah. Well, my dad and his brother used to like hunt all the time. So they were from upstate New York, and turkey hunting, deer hunting, like anything. Like I look back at like the pictures from my mom's like scrapbooks and stuff. Because, people used to do that. They used to scrapbook.
Yeah, they had pictures that like hard copy pictures.
Do like all the pictures in the albums, and all of it is like my dad and his brother and like their buddies and their friends, and all of them was like turkeys, pheasants, deer, like you name it, they had it. So I saw a lot of that, and then my dad also was a big NASCAR fan, so we would always, those were like the things. Okay, hunting, NASCAR, like that was like what they were into. And just growing up, like my dad would take us turkey hunting, he would take us deer hunting, we'd be sitting in the blind. And I remember actually one story, I was like the kid that could never sit still and never shut up. So my uncle actually tried to pay me. He's like, Maycee, I will give you $100 if you can just sit still and be quiet for 1 minute. Cause there was a turkey like outside the blind and they wanted it so bad. And I don't think I made it.
You can make $100?
No, I don't think I made the $100. I couldn't sit still. I was excited. But yeah, so growing up, like that's all that is all that we did, or that all we were around. And then eventually, when we got older, we started doing it ourselves. My sister and I, we did rifle season for elk. Yeah. So I've killed elk before. And then now we're into archery. So like, yeah, I would much rather go bow hunting than rifle hunting. Just because like it's more peaceful to me, and it's more challenging. Like you have to get closer. Sure. It's a lot of fun that way. And so yeah, I've only killed a turkey and elk. I have never got a deer yet. Really? And all sorts there's a bunch of things on my bucket list. I'm like, all right, I want to go deer hunting and like actually get something. Yeah. But yeah. Well,
I can imagine. I mean, because like you said, you started training and taking the fighting seriously like at 15, right?
Mm-hmm. So, well, yeah, I started training a lot more at like 15, 16, and then as soon as I turned 18, my career was like, let's go.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, because I grew up in a hunting family as well, right? But I didn't start like hunting on my own until you get 15 or 16, because that's when you can drive and have freedom. So about that time, that would have been happening for you is when you started taking fighting seriously. So it makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for like the boys right now, all they do is they take this like canoe and they put it on the top of the car because they're trying to get into like where this deer is, and they have to like get in through the water. So they like take this canoe and they put it on the top of the car and they hook some motor to it. Like it's a weird setup they got going on. Now they're like, we gotta get this deer, and like they can only do it now because they can drive. So yeah. Really funny, but every single day they put the canoe on top of the car. They put the motor on the canoe. I don't know how you even set up a motor on a canoe, but they did.
Dedication to the game.
And they go out and they try to find this deer, and it's quite entertaining.
It's just a fact of life. If you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to make it work. Yeah, like I've told this before I could drive, like I was talking about. I can remember days my mom would drop me off in the woods with her minivan, and I would just say, I'll be here at dark, and I would just be out there. Some packs of beef jerky shoved in the back of my turkey vest, and I'd just spend the day out there. Really killed anything because I didn't know what in the world I was doing, but it was fun.
Yeah, I feel like my mom is like, it's changed a lot. Like your mom could have dropped you off in the minivan. My mom is like, are you sure you want them out after dark? The boys are like, Mom, it's fine. Dad used to do this all the time. So
yeah, it's different times. Times. Sure. I know one thing, like, again, because I talked to, it's been entertaining for me, right? Because I've not only gotten to, in all this like time between initial contact with the Barber family per se to now to having you on the podcast, like I've taught, I think it was during turkey season. Your dad was sending me pictures of some turkeys that they had killed, and I don't know if you were with them or if it was just your brothers with them, but they killed some long spurred turkeys wherever they were. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. And then back during the fall, I don't remember who it was, but he sent a picture of a deer. I think one of your brothers killed.
Yep, this past deer season, my brother killed it. I
Yeah.
actually got to go out on that one. I remember because they took me out a couple of times and I got to sit in the tree stand with them.
Yeah.
And then they were going after this really big one, and they got it after, like, the night after I went out with them. They got it, and so they're like, "Yeah, we got it." And so we all went out to go recover. She just licked my mouth. My dog just licked my face. Yeah, so we all went out and we found this deer, and then he actually got it mounted. So
yeah. I know, because
it's like part of my gift to him. I'm like, hey, you get this deer, we'll go get it mounted. So I'm like, I'll get it mounted for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that must have been the one, because I was talking, I know I keep referring to your dad, but I was talking to your dad last week about this podcast, and he was like, we got the mount back on the deer, and he sent me a picture of it. I was like, yeah, that's a big deer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have to send you a picture of it, but if you already have it, then yeah, that's the one.
The Grande. He's big deer. Big deer.
It's a nice looking one too.
Yeah.
But like the way that it was angled, like you can't see the back side of it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Wow. You need to get one like that.
I'll take one like that. Sure.
So
Y'all take me out and show me where to find one like that. I'm patient.
Well, that was the thing. So so we had talked about, so Primos as a whole started doing a web series this spring.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started doing a bunch of like more real-time content or whatever. And I was talking to your dad again, and he was like, we need to get together and go turkey hunt one time this spring. And I was like, this would be perfect, because usually because in springs past, like I'd try to get up with Corey a couple times, and just with filming shows, I just never could make it work just because the schedule changed up enough this year with us having to do the real-time thing. I was like, yeah, this could absolutely work. And then I remember I talked about y'all coming to New Mexico with us possibly for that.
Yep.
And then Corona happened. And
Corona
ruined everyone's party.
Seemed to grace everyone with just like a lot of different times.
Yeah, I was so excited. I was like, this is actually going to work, and it would be perfect because then you get to go turkey hunting, you get to go out there, you get to meet Scarlett. Scarlett everybody'd be happy, right?
Yeah.
COVID. Yeah, it's a bummer.
It is, but I think as bad as it is, it's given a lot of people an opportunity to like figure out their own life. And like,
fair.
At least for me, like all I used to do is go to the gym and train. And then when I got injured, like I wasn't able to train. So I was like, okay, I'll go and watch the training. Well, then COVID happened and I couldn't even go and watch training. So then I had to like actually sit back and be like, all right, who am I and what do I like and what do I truly enjoy and value in my life outside of that? Because without that, I'm like, I don't know what I do or who I am. For a while, I was completely confused. So I think that probably is a case with a lot of people, like when you are forced to actually have to do something different than like your normal daily routine, you probably learn a lot of things that you do enjoy or you don't enjoy in your life. So whether that's being out in the woods, like if you have to think about, all you can think about is being outside, but when you're forced to not, like all my brothers have done and all my dad has done, and they even got me on it. We're all walking around the house with turkey calls in our mouths. Like that's all we do. And it drives my mom insane. Like all day, every day, it's just like all day. It is awful. But like you realize you're like, okay, maybe I can't go this place or that place. Obviously there's no like restriction. You can't not go outside. But you also learn new things. Like I was forced to not be in the gym. So now I'm like, oh, hey, turkey calls. You want to give me some of those? Like teach me. I need to learn.
That's
things you didn't have time for.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I get that. So like, I started working at Primos when I was 21, and I was straight out of college. Hadn't even finished college yet. I went there. I still had some college I had to complete, and I was so shell shocked at the job I had that I was like, y'all can send me to do anything. I can go for however long. I don't care how long I'm away from home. It doesn't matter. I'm just happy to be doing this job, right? And so I was just gone, like not at home. I was in, I think that first year I was like New Mexico, Colorado, Montana, and then we're on the river all deer season, and then turkey season was states on states on states. You know, I think we did like 9 or 10 different states. And then like summertime hit and there's nothing to hunt. I couldn't go on any travel trips working for Primos, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't know what I want to do, you know?
It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like when you have nothing to do, it actually seems more overwhelming than when you have a lot of things to do.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you were talking about that. I was, because I remember sitting there when I didn't have a trip to go on, I didn't have a trip to prepare for, and I was like, I don't know what to do with just being at home. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's especially when you're a go-getter, or when you're like have a job or you have something set, you're like, I need to be doing something all the time to try to progress towards something, like whatever it is. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Can we talk about the injury? Is that, because I thought so? You can explain it better than I can, but it happened in your last fight, correct?
Yeah. Yep. So, I've told this story a couple of times, obviously, and like,
yeah.
I never want to take away from a fight and like a win or a loss. Obviously, like when a lot of people think about it, like to most fans, like people for the majority only care if you win or lose. So for me to be like, hey, I did this and this and this and this is why I lost, like nobody likes a sore loser. So don't make excuses. Obviously, I lost the fight.
Yeah.
But what was crazy is I went into that fight, and I remember my coach, he was like, all right, all we have to do when I got in, so I walked out, I got in the cage, everything was great, and I heard my coach, and he's like, all we have to do is land your jab. I just want you to land one good jab. So this is before the fight actually happened. So I'm standing in the cage, we're getting ready to touch gloves, we go out, he says, go, and I'm like, all right, all I have to do is land one good jab, that's all I gotta do. So I throw a jab, and I overstepped, and I stepped on her foot, and she pulled her foot away. And when that happened, my knee popped. So like that first strike that I threw is when I like tore my leg. I don't know if it was like completely torn in like the very beginning, like that entire, like all the way, like my whole ACL was gone.
Yeah.
But that moment it popped, and I was like, oh, okay, something's wrong. But the adrenaline, because it was like the first bit of the fight, like I didn't feel it necessarily, aside from the pop and like the instability.
Yeah.
So round 1 went on, and then round 2, in between 1 and 2, I didn't tell my coaches I was hurt, because I thought I was gonna be okay. Yeah. And she threw a punch, and I went to step back, and it looks like, when you watch the fight, it looks like she dropped me, which, like, her punch, like, barely touched my face, but at the same time, like, I was stepping back, and my leg was gone. Like, that joint, the lip, my ACL was completely torn, so I stepped back, and I fell over. Yeah. And it was kind of, like, everything, like, physically was downhill from there. So it was just kind of like, all right, I got to make it out of this fight without getting finished. And I want to try and finish her. Obviously, the odds are not in my favor for finishing her, but at that point, you know, my goal was just pretty much, I'm not going to get beat up too bad. And then I took a cut. She caught me with an elbow in the head. And that made it all bloody and nasty, but yeah. So yeah, I completely tore my ACL, and I had reconstructive surgery on February 10th. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I'm on month 5 in, like, what is today, the 8th? So in 2 days, it'll be 5 months since I had surgery, which is crazy because it seems like yesterday. Yeah. But they said about month 6 or month 7 is when I can start fully training. So I'm already back in the gym, but yeah. Yeah.
I remember, because I was watching that fight, and I remember I was like, what I thought was weird, and I'm going to try not to go full, like, I could, if I don't control myself, I could go full MMA nerd.
No, go for it. It's okay.
And not ask any more hunting questions. Well, I don't like the people that listen to this probably like, ask her more hunting stuff. But so
they're like, what did she shoot yesterday?
Right. Exactly. But I remember watching that fight, And I remember, well, because the commentators were talking about it, and I was like, something's wrong with her leg. I mean, it was obvious that something had happened to the leg. And then what I thought was weird is like the doctor came in.
Oh yeah.
I was like, that doesn't seem standard. Not that I'm a fan. I don't claim to be an expert because I'm not. I was like, that just doesn't seem like something normal because anyhow, I thought that was weird.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen a doctor go in, but like I did tell my coaches that something was wrong with my leg in between, I think, round and two, in between round 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So 1 and 2, I didn't tell them because the adrenaline was so high. I'm like, oh, I think I got this. Like, I'm okay. And then I stood up from the stool. I'm like, oh, I'm not all right, but guess I'm all right. Like, I guess I'm going to go. So then, sorry, it just totally scared me.
This is a dog-friendly podcast.
It scared me.
Yeah,
in between round 2 and 3, I did tell them, and the doctor came in. He's like, sit down. And I didn't want to have him sit me down because I knew that my leg was torn. And I was so afraid of him stopping the fight. I was like, I don't want to lose by doctor stoppage or anything other than a decision. Like, if I'm going to lose, it better go to a decision because you're not going to finish me inside that cage. Like, that's just not how I'm going to go out. So he sat me down, and I kept trying to argue with him and tell him I was okay. And then he went and told the ref, he's like, she has a partial tear of her ACL. She's fine. And I was like, oh, thank God he said I was okay. Which, when he tells that to somebody, it should probably be stopped. But for me, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I just wanted to keep going. I just had to make it out of there. So. Well,
that's where, because I talked to your dad sometime briefly after that fight, and I knew something, like you could tell something was wrong. But your dad was like, yeah, she blew her ACL. I was like, she did what? I was like, and she made it through the whole fight? Like, yeah.
Let me tell you, though, adrenaline plays wonders.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
First round was all right. Second round kind of sucked. The end of the second and the third round were like, it was some of the worst pain I've ever felt.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Because there's so many things about this that interest me. Is like, because me thinking I haven't torn an ACL. I tore a PCL pretty bad. And I knew, that didn't feel great. But I was like trying to imagine competing on that the way that y'all it just blows my mind. But
it's so there's not a lot of according to what the surgeon told me, he's like, there's not a lot of like nerve endings necessarily there, but like that one where I stepped back and I fell over, he explained it to me. He's like, the reason why you like screamed out, he's like, because your shin bone and your femur, they smashed together because there was nothing there to like stabilize and hold it together. So because your ligaments and tendons were not in the right spot and your muscles were kind of going weird, that's why that hits. And so that's the pain, because like there's a lot of nerve endings on those ends, that area. So they hit together, and that's why I was like in a lot of pain. But then a lot of it was just like it was just not stable. So like it's not there. So it's not, the stability is just not there. So the pain was more of like the bones and stuff hitting together, which is why I couldn't have surgery for like a month because of the swelling and the bruising. So
well, and then I realize I'm biased in this conversation, but I can remember watching the fight, and because I remember you said if you watch it, it looks like a knockdown. But before that happened, they were the people, they're like, something's wrong with that leg. And then I remember when that punch landed, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, that leg's messed up. Like something's wrong.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Crazy story, and it's not hunting related, obviously, but
that's fine.
So there's a fighter, his name's James Krause. He's also a coach. And so James Krause, he's a guy that I've looked up to. I've trained around him. I've trained like with same coach. Mm-hmm. And I remember he was there that week that I was fighting. And I've told this story to like one other person, I think. But that day of the fight, I was at the hotel and I was getting ready to go to the venue, and I just saw him and I was like, hey, we said hi, and we were just randomly talking, and I wanted to ask him, I'm like, all right, so what are your thoughts on the fight? Because I always have to ask that to people that I look up to. I'm like, all right, what are your thoughts on this fight? Like, what do you think? And he, word for word, told me, he's like, honestly, he's like, you are the biggest favorite on this card. Like, I was one of the biggest betting favorites in history, like for a pretty big fight, like I had a pretty big, I don't follow a lot of the betting and the odds and stuff, But from what everybody told me, I had a pretty big numbers next to me, right? So he was telling me that. He's like, you're the biggest favorite on the card. He's like, the only way this girl wins is if you have a freak accident and you get injured and you can't fight. That was word for word what he said. He's like, you win this fight 9 times out of 10. The only reason why you wouldn't win this fight is if you had a freak injury and you couldn't. And I was like, are you serious right now? So when I look back at that, I'm like, wow, like that.
Yeah. Did you go have another conversation with him and say, hey, man, don't put that voodoo on me again? You know what I mean?
I don't know if I've ever said it to him, but I'm like, I think I've talked enough trash. I'm like, wow, this is lovely.
Yeah. I get that has to be frustrating. Like, I imagine it's frustrating to lose anyway, but to like as much work as y'all go through to get yourself ready for those fights, and then to lose because something like your ACL tore, like that's got to be frustrating.
I mean, I could get frustrated about it, but like I know when I sign the line that you're basically saying that I know that my whole life and my body's on the line. So for me, like it's the only thing that's frustrating about it was the fact that I can't go back and fix it right then. Like I couldn't go back and take a fight and be like, hey, I want to fight her again tomorrow. Let's do it again. You know, because I like had an injury. So I have 8 months at least of sitting on the sidelines watching and seeing everyone else progress in their career. Yeah. So I just kind of, instead of trying to be down about it, I was just like, all right, how am I going to progress and how am I going to focus on getting better and staying up with, you know, progressing rather than just being like, oh, poor me. But in the fight, like it wasn't, it sucked, but it was kind of like, I would never take it back because it's just a new challenge and it's a test of, okay, well, most people would give up in this situation or most people would find a way out or something like that, you know, like, I would never take it back because it's part of the journey and it's part of the process and it's changed me as a person for sure. And things happen, injuries happen, and that's just the way it goes, you know? So well, in the fight, I didn't get frustrated at all in the fight. Like that never once crossed my mind. I was like, all right, I'm injured. Now what? Like,
no, you were in the fight. I mean, there was no doubt about that. Because again, I was watching it live when it happened. I mean, but that's the attitude to have. I think. I mean, there's so much about, I guess, just life in general. Whether it's fighting, whether it's hunting, whatever, is just how you respond to adversity, right?
And circumstances, it's like,
Yeah. I mean, that would definitely be the right attitude. I mean, because you're right. I mean, it's not like you can do anything to change it. So,
it's like you can't really. I try not to let the things that you can't control affect your attitude. Like, for instance, in a fight, if you get injured, it's not really like you didn't go in there and be like, oh yeah, let's tear my leg and let's, you know, it wasn't in my control. So why would I have an issue with it? Say you're outside in the woods and you're on a big deer. Well, if the wind is going the wrong way, it's not really your fault. So it's not really in your control. So, you know, what is, you know, being frustrated or irritated or mad about it? What good is that going to do except for just ruin your day? So it's like, all right, well, figure it out a different way.
Wise words, Maycee Barber. Wise words.
I try.
And I appreciate the token deer hunting example because you brought it back in. We were talking about MMA for a while.
Hey, I have to kind of help you out.
Yeah, you gotta lasso me back in.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. So, this elk hunt you're going on this September, you gonna be bow hunting? You may have answered that already.
Yeah. So I think it's been like a month. It's been a little longer than that since I shot my bow. I think I shot my bow once after surgery.
Yeah.
But I gotta get back on. I know. I got the time. I have to get my strings fixed again because they're like they need to be.
They're twisting real bad or they're fraying?
They're fraying. Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna want to get that looked at.
Yeah.
I remember I killed my first elk I killed with my bow was 4 years ago. Anyhow, I became like obsessed with, I mean, I'd bow hunted since I was like, I think like 13 or 14, but all I'd ever shot was deer. or, stuff around the house. I'd never shot anything like an elk with my bow. I'd killed one with my gun prior, but I just became so obsessed with shooting my bow and just trying to make sure everything was absolutely right, because I just didn't want to screw it up. You know what I mean? I was like, This is a really, really big opportunity. And I got to the point starting in the month of June, I was shooting every day. I was going out and taking at least a half an hour and shooting. And then the whole month of August, I was shooting every morning and every afternoon, because I was just so obsessed with not screwing that up. Because I was like, I may not ever get this opportunity again in my life. I don't know when that's going to come around again. And so I was shooting so much, but I think it was, I'm trying to think. It ended up, it was funny. I mean, it definitely made me more confident in, going into the situation. But then the elk I shot was like at 19 yards. So it would have been hard to mess that one up, even if I tried to. Because
surprised at how many people can mess that one up.
I say that. I could easily mess that one up but I didn't, thankfully. But anyhow, I don't know why I tell that story. I don't say that as in, it wasn't like you should practice a lot or you should screw up, or don't take that way. But
hey, don't keep practicing. You're gonna mess all of it up.
You're gonna blow.
No, honestly, I think my biggest struggle, and I don't know if it's even a fear, but my brothers have killed some pretty nice deer and elk.
Yeah.
And the bar is set high for me, and I'm a competitive person, so I'm almost at that point where I'm like, all right, well, I want to one up you. I want to one up you. And I don't know how to do that on my own. So it's and I don't have enough time or effort to put into it that hard, and I really want to. So if I start doing it more and more, I'm going to become obsessive with it. And then I'm going to be like, all right, well, this is my career now. Forget fighting. But I can't do that, because I can't put myself in two places.
Yeah.
So right now it's a lot of fun just for me to be around it, and hey, will you take me out? And I want to learn the process the right way. I want to learn how to call. I want to learn how to, position myself in the right spots and areas, and know, if I have to face up or down and what time of the day it is, and different things. I actually try to learn that stuff, because it's not just walk out, sit by a tree and just call it good. There's so many things. I've learned that not just about fighting, or not just about for instance, NASCAR and even hunting. There's more to it than just, all right, hey, we're going to grab a gun, get some shells, and go sit on that tree. That's not how it is. It's not, hey, we're just going to jump in a car and drive it around in a circle fast. There are so many more things and details to all these sports and all these hobbies that people just don't even grasp and realize. And I think it's something that really can be appreciated deeper if you learn about it more. And that's something that I try to learn more. So
the best thing that ever happened to me, and it took a few years, or I don't know how to put a solid timeline on it, on how I got to where I'm at as far as my thinking on hunting and how you gauge success. But I know what I can attribute to. I can attribute to hunting around people like Will Primos and Brad Ferris, who, obviously shooting a big elk is awesome. Shooting a big deer is awesome. Shooting a turkey that has long spurs is awesome. But I watch those guys that have their appreciation is so deeply rooted in the process of getting to that point, rather than how big the elk is that you shoot, or the deer, or the turkey, or whatever. Right. So best example.
So just getting the animal close to you is
exactly. So where we deer hunted at on the river, the place we called Cottonmouth, there was a deer, actually Jimmy shot it. And he was talking about score, size of a deer. This deer would not have scored anything to write home about. He was a ginormous 6 point. 6 point, wouldn't have scored anything. But that deer was just to put it on a scale, I think the average age structure of the deer we killed over there was 4 to 5 years old. That 6 point Jimmy killed was 8. he'd been around for a while. So the level of success was not in like, oh, this is a huge antler, high scoring deer, because he wasn't, but he was a really, really cool deer. And he was a really, really slick deer because he was old and he had been around forever. And by the time that we killed the deer, didn't nobody care about how much he scored. We were like, that was a really awesome hunt. And then transfer that over to elk hunting. Like I can't tell you the last elk that I've filmed Brad Ferris kill that I've seen him tape and figure out a score to. He just likes the process. And everyone on the team's kind of become that way. We just kind of like being out there. I mean, because you being from Colorado, the places where elk live are so special.
Oh
They're
my God.
awesome.
Yeah.
They're absolutely awesome. So I'm looking for getting to it right now. I mean, sitting here talking to you about it, I'm getting excited about it because I know.
I can't wait to go back out there, especially like where we go. There's so many, like the entire place is filled with aspen trees.
Oh, God.
And when you go out in the middle of like the beginning of fall, right when the leaves are changing before they go to fall off the trees.
Yeah.
Man, it's breathtaking. And every time I go there, every time we go out for elk season, I always tell my mom, I'm like, I'm going to get married here. Because it's that beautiful. I'm like, I'm going to get married every single year, and it's going to be right here where these trees are. That's how it is. I'm like, hey, we could kill two birds with one stone. We'll go out for elk season, and then I'll get married. Like, it's perfect.
Well, so the first time that I ever went elk hunting in Colorado, I'd been to Colorado one time prior, but it was like on a family skiing trip when I was in high school. This was like the first time that I counted as like experiencing Colorado and the mountains. And there was this place that we were hunting, and I've told this story a lot. I don't know if I've ever told it on this podcast, but I've told it to some friends of mine. This place that we were hunting, the top of it kind of converged in 3 mountain peaks, and it formed this basin. So it's really cool. It's like, I mean, it's up there elevation wise. I think at the, like right when you're right before you get into the basin, I think it's like a little bit over 12,000 feet.
This is in Colorado, right?
Yeah. And so it's cool because you like climb, and all of a sudden you reach that basin and it's flat. But the coolest thing about that place is whether I realized or not, like especially back home in Mississippi, like I love all the work that we do for deer hunting as far as like food plots and habitat work and all that. But so much of the woods, even the woods that we hunt around in, are still so manipulated by human beings and just society and stuff that goes on. Whereas that basin had not been touched. Like the only reason that those elk were there, because there was elk everywhere in that basin. It was incredible. The only reason those elk were there is because the Lord made that basin that way however many years ago, and you get up there and there's these aspen trees and it just smells like elk, and you got those 3 mountain peaks surrounding you. So when the elk bugles, it just kind of echoes right through there. It was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced because it was so
raw.
I'd never been exposed to something that natural. You know what I mean? And that's when I think about Colorado and elk hunting. That's always where my mind drifts back to, is that basin. It was so cool. Yeah,
I mean that's like all I've ever known is going up, and we actually have to, you hike way above tree line. You go up, and you have to scout them out. You have to find them, but it's not one of those things where like, oh yeah, we know they're gonna be. Well, my dad and my brothers now, from like the years and years and years, my dad's been hunting that spot for, gosh, probably over 15 years now. 20 years. So for him, it's like, yeah, he's been hunting there for 20 something years. But like he knows where they like to go, where the guys like to hunt, like where certain people go and hunt, and like if they're pushing them one way or the other, or if they're gonna push them, like out into the field or up into the tree line. And it's crazy because like that's how I've learned is, you take a drive, you go out, you actually look for like the areas, and then like it's just their natural habitat. There's not just something that you changed up and manipulated to where you're like, all right, they're gonna love it here. It's not like that. It's you go and you enter their world, and you have to figure out and kind of like put yourself in like their kind of position. All right, like if I was them, where would I want to be? And it's away from people, and it's in like this beautiful area where there's like the right environment for them. So it's really neat, actually.
It's cool. Like I love it. I love every part of it. There's something about like that high mountain air, and those aspens. It just has like the smell to it. Like I can close my eyes and smell it right now. But yeah. I'm excited for you. I surely hope you get one.
Thank you. Me too. I mean, it's been a while, so
yeah.
It's been
Well,
way too long.
I mean, think about it like things just working out for the good. You know, if things hadn't happened the way they were, like you said, you'd probably be in the gym.
I would not be half excited for this trip because I'd be, hey, I got to fight, and why would I leave the gym when I can go out and,
Yeah,
so,
that is awesome.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, well,
I need that too. Like not only that, but like also being in the woods kind of gives you like a mental break.
Yeah.
Like for me, like social media wise, like I'm always on my phone and I'm always busy, you know, like trying to connect with people, trying to set up an interview, trying to set up a podcast. Like I never have a time where you can just like breathe.
Yeah.
And also a lot of times where the elk are, they're in areas where you don't have service. Like it's kind of enjoyable because you can't even like feel like the need to be on your phone or like the obligation to like be paying attention to that. It's just you, and you actually have to be present. So that's like a whole nother level to it.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things too. You get in a situation like that and you don't realize how sucked into your phone and social media and stuff you are until you get to one of those spots where you don't have cell service. You're like, man, I'm on that phone a lot, you know? And then I've had some of the other athletes and fighters that I've had on here and stuff. A lot of them have had like a similar thing that they told me is where, like for instance, like when I had a guy, Kevin Smith, he's a catcher for the Angels. And that dude, after we did a podcast, that dude was talking to me all the time. And it wasn't a problem. I was just like, in my mind, I was like, I would think, you know, he just has better things to do than talk to than just talk to me. But he told me that he was like, dude, I have to think about baseball so much that I talk to you about hunting so I can get some kind of mental break so I'm not thinking about baseball all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Corey did the same thing for a while. Like Corey would be sending me pictures of deer on his trail cameras and but the evening, like the night that Corey knocked out Johnny Walker, I text him and I was like, man, I'm so happy for you, this, that, and the other. He replies back. He doesn't even say anything. He just replies back with a trail cam picture of a deer. And I was like, and then
my phone.
Then he said something else. He was like, yeah, but what about this deer though? I'm like, Corey, you just knocked out Johnny Walker. And he's like, yeah, but look at this buck.
But that's awesome.
It's funny.
I like him. He's really cool. He's a good person.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's same kind of like, he was supposed to come down and hunt with us in January, but then they booked him for that fight with I can't remember the dude's name, but he got another fight booked and he couldn't come down. Jan, that's it. Jan.
Oh, Jan?
Blackowicz. Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Polish name or something. I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, there's a few of those.
Yeah. Yes. Anyhow, Maycee, this has been a fun conversation. I appreciate it.
Me too.
We need to okay, there's some things that we have to do. Like I want to stay posted on your elk success in September.
Okay.
I want that. Yeah. And then we got to figure something out because we were so close to getting something as far as like getting you out here hunting in turkey season, but again, Corona. But we have to stay working on that front. We'll get something going. Okay. But yeah, cool. I could sit here and rattle off 1,000 more questions, but I've already eaten way more of your time up than I probably should have, but I really appreciate it.
I have wrestling at 4:30. Other than that, I've put a schedule for you.
You're the best. You're the best. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up if that's good with you. And again, I can't thank you enough. It's been a fun conversation.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did. And as always, thank you for listening to the Speak the Language podcast.